Hello, hello Internet. We're here live at MIX, and you know, it's kind of an interesting thing is that we have all these people that we bring into the hall to watch the keynotes, and we have all this big active audience at home that are watching via Twitter. But you know, in the event since MIX06, we've been hosting these things, and we haven't really done anything for that home audience. What we're going to do is we're going to try something new. We're going to follow Twitter. We've asked people to use the hashtag Ask The Gu. And what we're going to go do is we're going to ask questions that come in. It might work great, it might fail miserably, but at least we're trying something new. We're here with Scott Guthrie, who drove us through the keynote this morning with lots of fun announcements. And we have Jeff Atwood, who you might know as @CodingHorror. Jeff was with Stack Overflow and codinghorror.com. We're going to go through and ask some questions through Twitter. So one thing I just wanted to ask before we get going with that is, Scott, you've been doing these keynotes for a while. What's that preparation like for you, getting ready to plan for a big event like this?
There's a lot of preparation that goes into an event like this. Specifically MIX and PDC for me are the typical keynotes I do, and there's a lot of people attend. There's press and analysts, and people are looking for big announcements, and so those two keynotes in particular, because we're showing new stuff, tends to be a little bit more preparation. So. Often usually a couple weeks before the event, we'll start thinking about kind of what the story and kind of the arc of the keynote looks like, and then usually find customers that are interested in participating as part of it, and work with them, and then usually I fly for MIX. I usually fly this week it was Sunday. Down to Vegas, and we usually don't have any slides on Sunday, and then usually we kind of lock ourselves in a hotel room Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, wow. and write the deck.
That's very
and
cool.
So it's the last 72 hours tend to be kind of chaotic, but
nice.
And so we finished at 11 o'clock last night. Went to bed, woke up at 6, and here we are.
It's a great morning. This was first time for you. I think that you've been on a big stage like this, an event. What's that like for you?
Well, it's really exciting for me because I love MIX. It's my favorite show by far that you guys put on. And being in the audience, having that experience of being in the audience and then switching to be up here, speaking is really exciting.
A little nerve-wracking?
Definitely a little nerve-wracking. You definitely want to go to the bathroom before the presentation.
Yeah.
But exciting, because this is all about building cool stuff with your peers, and I love that stuff.
Big fan of Stack Overflow.
Oh, thank you.
Great community, and it's just fun to see something like that with people so engaged, and it was just great. It was a great surprise, to see it all come together, and thanks for building it on our platform. Okay. First question from Twitter, Rob Windsor @RobWindsor, Ask the Gu. Okay. Why a red polo? Don't you know these guys in red were the ones who didn't make it back from the away missions?
I don't know where quite the red polo thing came from. I wore it like 3 years ago for a MIX keynote, and the keynote seemed to go really well, and so the following year I said, wow, okay, I'm trying to figure out what to wear, and I am known for my polos. I do actually have two other colors that I use, but
light red, dark red?
No, it's kind of I switch it up. I like to try to have at least 3 a year, and so this year it's red, blue, and light blue. But but anyway, I did it again, and then it became kind of a tradition, and so I've done it now. Right. I don't know, 4 or 5 big keynotes, and the only kind of awkward thing is, you see pictures of like, oh, here's what he announced here, and here's what he announced there, and here's what not there. It tends to actually look identical. Maybe a little less hair, but and so this year I was actually going to wear something different, and enough people kind of had an outcry over that we decided to still go with the red polo, but long sleeves instead of short, although it's hot enough in Vegas, they ended up rolling them up anyway.
So @GazCoop. So why should I really be excited about Silverlight 3? What's in it for me? I'm not a developer, and so why should I even care?
Well, I think there's two aspects of Silverlight. One is the consumer using it, and then one is actually someone who's building an experience with it. And hopefully there's positives to both. For someone building an experience with it, both as a developer as well as a designer, I think, especially with Silverlight 3 and the Expression suite of products that are coming out to target it, as well as the Visual Studio support we have, we kind of have a pretty compelling offering, both from that enables you to build things you just can't build anywhere else. Mm-hmm. If you want to have kind of the deep zoom like experience that we showed today in terms of the Bondi application, where it's just sort of, you got multi-touch, you've got panning, you've got scrolling, you've got multiple levels of image depth, all kind of nicely polished together. If you want to build out of the browser applications like KEXP, if you want to build, great media experiences like the Olympics or Netflix, you suddenly now have a much more powerful set of tools at your disposal. And I think especially with Blend 3 as a designer or as an agency or as a company just building solutions for clients, you can do a lot more. Hopefully then from a consumer perspective, you get a better web.
Right.
That's the true test.
So next question here from A-Man FM. Ask the Gu, Silverlight outside the browser, does that include Windows Mobile?
No, it's a good question. So one of the things I didn't talk about in the keynote, mainly because of time, is kind of our mobile roadmap. We announced last year, our plan to ship Silverlight Mobile. One of the key things that we did with mobile is we're not shipping a different version of mobile or a subset of features on mobile. We are shipping the exact same features of Silverlight on mobile. And so that means, on Silverlight Mobile, you will be able to build out of the browser applications. We're not releasing a public beta of Silverlight Mobile today. We do have a private beta that we are working with a number of partners with.
That's great. Hey, Jeff, I'm meaning to ask you, with the website, Stack Overflow. I mean, really short kind of dev time for you and how you went and do that. Lots of sleepless nights, or how did that all come together? It was a pretty neat thing. I know you were working at Vertigo at a time, and then you went off. Tell us a little bit about the story about, about how Stack Overflow started in the scenario that you were going after.
Sure. Well, I think it started with a concept, and we like to have a concept that everybody, when you explain it to them like in a paragraph, they go, oh, okay, I get it. And we feel like unless you have a concept like that, you can explain in a couple paragraphs that people understand and relate to, you really need to go back to the drawing board and not even, before you even touched code. And we had a really strong story because there's certain sites, and I don't really name names, but that people really dislike on the internet that do sort of related things. So you sort of explain to them and go, we're sort of the anti-X, and they go, okay, I totally get what you're doing, and I like it. And then we were like, okay, we have a good idea. And then at that point, you sit down to do development. And of course, our story is really an ASP.NET MVC story, that we had sort of grown disenchanted with the status quo, and it was nice. And also, I know Phil.
Right.
Phil works directly with that team, and so I knew a lot about it. And we started doing it, and it was just nice. It felt like when we skeletoned out the app, we were like, okay, what should our URLs look like? This was a very logical way to build a web app. Start at the URL level and think, okay, what should this URL do? What should this URL do? And how do the actions relate to the URLs? And that gives you a really nice high-level picture of what your site is supposed to do. And then some basic visual mock-ups. And then we got a good start.
It all comes down to the community, too, that you end up building onto this site. And it's only as good as the people that you get there. How did you go and bootstrap that? I mean, that's...
Well, we cheated horribly because I have a great audience that I love on Stack Overflow that's very sort of non-denominational, use a lot of different tool sets. And it's about the craft of programming more so than devotion to a tool set. And I love that. And to me, that's what it's all about. And so the hope was we would say, okay, we're building this thing. We hope you follow us. You don't have to, but you'll follow us here and look at it and say, do we like this? Do we not like this? And then I partnered with Joel, who I've been a great admirer of Joel for a long, long time. He was one of the first major sort of software bloggers. And I think everybody who blogs sort of looks at Joel first because he was just out there doing it really early. And it's been very exciting to work with Joel. And we had he had ideas about community as well. His community would hopefully follow us. And it's been very gratifying to see it all play out.
It's a powerful thing when you get users and people helping each other that way.
Oh, absolutely. It's
wonderful.
really fun.
Ask the Gu, can you use Super Preview to test JavaScript functionality, or is it render only?
Good question. I think you can use it. I'm not 100% sure. I think you can use it to test initial page load functionality. I don't think you can use it to test behavior. So in other words, you can't test it to click a button and see what happens there. Not in the first release. I think that's something that we're definitely looking to enable in the future, though.
Very cool. It's it's really neat. I've got a dev team on my team. They build Channel 9 and the MIX Online experience and stuff like that. And it's definitely when we started seeing it, weeks and weeks ago, it was just like, oh my gosh, this is going to be so useful for us. So it's a great thing. Paul Mitt, does Silverlight 3.0 beta released today include a Go Live license?
Yeah, the Silverlight 3 beta does not include a Go Live license. It's a developer beta. Mainly the reason we did that is we wanted to make sure we didn't get a whole bunch of sites out there that went live just yet. And instead, and we want to make sure that nothing breaks between the beta and the RTM, and we don't have to worry about sites having issues there. So the 3.0 is a development beta, but the hopefully the final release is not too far off.
Great. Jeff, I want to ask you this question. It's about ASP.NET MVC. And just a sec here. No. So let me jump to another one here. Why would I build a WPF app when I can do almost the same thing in Silverlight 3?
That's a good question. I think a lot of people sometimes, superficially might think, oh, I can do everything I want in Silverlight. And certainly our goal with Silverlight is to enable you to do a heck of a lot of stuff, and so you certainly can. What WPF kind of plays a huge role is allowing you to go even further. And so if you want to build a kind of complete Windows application, if you want to take advantage of even more advanced 3D or direct 3D support or even richer text support, there's plenty of features that really differentiate the two. One of the things that I think one of the big highlights of the demo of the keynote was the work that Blend 3's done. Blend 3 is entirely written in WPF. And so, one of the reasons why we were able to get so much functionality in that tool was because of the productivity benefits that WPF gets. The next version of Visual Studio 2010, is also built with WPF. And building those types of Windows-based applications with all the richness that they provide, right now you really can only do in WPF, and we don't really think Silverlight plays a role in that space. But if you want to build a media-based solution, if you want to build data forms entry solution, if you want to build a solution that integrates with your site and runs outside the browser, we think Silverlight is great for that. And having the same APIs and the same kind of XAML markup, the same set of controls in both, means that you as a developer can start with Silverlight, and if you want to use upgrade to WPF, you can. Likewise, if you learn WPF, it's really easy to target Silverlight.
That's great. I am Duke. Ask the Gu, and I'm going to ask, instead of asking you, I'm going to ask Jeff. Why should I use ASP.NET MVC? You had a lot of choices. Why'd you go do that for you? Why'd you choose that?
Well, I think for us, it was having a lot of experience with the web forms model. You sort of learn the limitations, and every model sort of sounds good until you start working with it and you hit the real world and you hit the practical issues that you run into, and it ends up being sort of a bit of a leaky abstraction. So we feel like ASP.NET MVC is less leaky, and that's also, I'm a control freak, so if you're a control freak, believe me, MVC is the framework for you. But if you're more hands-off and like, I don't really care what the rendering looks like, I just want it to work, I want to set some properties on a form and just have it kind of work, or if you're like, I want total detailed control of every single thing that happens. Right. And for us, that was important because we felt like we're delivering a packaged experience on the site that is very tightly controlled, so we know everything that happens on the site. So I think that's the trade-off, and that's what you want to look at there.
And nice valid HTML, it validates, and
absolutely,
yeah, that's great. Ask the Gu. What about back compatibility of Silverlight 3? Will my apps written in Silverlight 2.0 work?
They definitely should. Please let us know during the beta if you find a case where it doesn't, and send it to us. But our goal is absolutely backwards compatibility. And that also means you can build a Silverlight 2 solution today, know it's going to work in Silverlight 3, and so that is definitely a core tenet of the release.
That's great.
Our goal also is make hopefully every scenario faster with Silverlight 3, or the same or faster. Maybe not every scenario will be faster, but certainly from a video frame rate perspective, some of the work we're doing with hardware accelerated graphics, we've made some nice improvements around text animation and a bunch of other things. Our goal is to be able to push the boundaries even more in terms of what you can do and have those Silverlight 2 apps run even faster.
That's great. Jay Bristow asked the Gu, in your opinion, what will it take to get Flash developers to start building RIAs on Silverlight?
Well, I think the approach that we've always had when we started Silverlight was kind of a three-pronged strategy, and it's not a super complex strategy. It is first, deliver with the Silverlight runtime, more features, a better programming model, and enable new experiences, versus other competitors. And so, things like multi-touch, things like deep zoom, things like some of the graphic capabilities that are being added, things like the data features, things like data binding. Those are all things where we can point to. Those are big features that other platforms potentially don't have, and as a developer designer, you can really do a lot of differentiated things with it. Second part of the strategy is let's have the best tools. To some extent, taking advantage and building those types of experiences requires more than APIs. You really need a workflow, And we feel with Expression Web or Expression Blend 3, with the sketch flow, the Photoshop import, the Illustrator import, we think we have a really nice workflow. There's more we're going to do, but I think I feel good now. We can sit down with any designer that knows other tools and impress them. And then third is we want to make sure we get our adoption and deployment up so that you can depend on Silverlight just being there. And so I feel pretty good on the first two. We're making lots of progress, as we kind of announced a little bit during the keynote on the third. And as that differential on all three of those improves, we expect to see more and more people both adopt us as well as move from other places.
That's great, inch by inch. So for Jeff, and I've actually wanted to ask the same question too, which is, it's from Lazy Coder. When are we going to see Stack Overflow open sourced or get a white paper covering its architecture? I guess that's two different questions. Or is there a product announcement? I mean, I'd love to start a cooking, Stack Overflow thing where you could ask questions about cooking. When are we going to see that happen?
Well, I think with that, there's a lot of directions we want to go, and one direction we're going in today is we're going to have sort of an IT/sysadmin themed Stack Overflow. The tentative name so far is serverfault.com. That's roughly decided. So we're definitely sort of starting with, you start with an N of one, where you have a baby, and it's like, okay, is my baby ready to see the world? And then, are we ready for having two children? And then once you do that, stuff like having an API has come up a lot. And I think having an API is a logical direction to go in, so people can actually integrate with the site and build tools like they do build tools for Twitter. And as far as like open sourcing the code, I think we'll get there. I can't promise a time frame, but spiritually, it matches with the goals and what we're trying to do. It's just, I feel like we need to bake it a lot more before it's really ready for that kind of consumption.
Well, you built it and shipped it in quick time. I'm sure, when you get code, and we had a little experience with that on my team, or a little project called Oxide, you go and ship something quickly and you release it. You want to make sure that you do right by the architecture that you put out there and get it wonderful. But it'd be great to be able to get more people doing things with Stack Overflow.
Sure.
Drew Woods wants to know, what kind of printing support is in Silverlight 3?
We don't. Yeah. So printing is one of the features that is not substantially improved with Silverlight 3 versus Silverlight 2. So there is some printing support, but you'll probably see the next release of Silverlight, in particular for printing. Webcam and microphone are two other features that a lot of people have asked for. Those three are definitely areas that you're going to see more investment in the future. We have some nice improvements, but I'd say, the next release is when you'll see even further.
That's cool. So we put out Channel 9, the community that my team works with, ask questions from there too. And Raymond asked, will Microsoft Expression Studio be expanded to include a professional nonlinear editing application for editing video and film that will surpass Adobe's Premiere Pro, Apple Final Cut Pro, or Avid Media Composer? Wow. They got
Just
more than 100.
request.
They got more than 140 characters.
Well, it's we're certainly we're not announcing anything today.
There you go.
One of the things though, that I think we do try to emphasize, and our encoder product we kind of built, specifically not to be an editing suite. It's really about encoding, and partly because a lot of the video that goes on the web, you want to separate out often the encoding and the raw editing component of it. And typically with encoding, you might use the tool to set up, for one-offs. But often what you want to do is be able to create jobs that you can then run lots of different video through with the same encoding settings. And that's what an Expression Encoder is particularly good at doing. What's nice is because we support H.264, we support VC1, we support AVIs, we support MPEG-4, you can use any of those editing suites that were just mentioned, edit the video however you want, and then basically either play it directly with Silverlight, or if you want to do additional encoding like the smooth streaming capability, just import it like I did in the keynote, hit encode, and you're done. And so, there's lots of great editing software out there. Our plan is right now is basically to partner with that and make sure that Silverlight and Expression play nicely with them.
Another Channel 9er. Mattis. Will Visual Studio 2010 and future development of DSLs put me out of a job in the near future, since I am a hardcore .NET developer?
Hopefully, it certainly doesn't put you out of a job. We are certainly focusing a lot on productivity with 2010. certainly both from a language perspective, there's lots of great improvements that are happening to both VB and C# that kind of enable you to build, hopefully write code even more productively, and you have the great tooling experience around it. And obviously we're also looking at DSLs both for data and other scenarios. But hopefully it definitely doesn't put you out of a job. Hopefully it makes your job easier. And at the end of the day, I think it's important, especially with this economy, developers that are productive have this huge advantage when they work with companies and can provide just a tremendous amount of value within an IT organization. And so I think one of the things that we as developers need to do is figure out, how do we continue to get more productive, because our value goes up, not down, when that happens. And that's a lot of what we're focusing on with both .NET, VS, and Silverlight.
That's great. Okay, this is a real short question, but probably not a simple answer. It says, it's from Eric Dulicki. Please explain the garbage collector. Wow. Cool.
Okay. Yeah, for people who don't know, garbage collection, or GC, basically is a mechanism that you can use to allocate memory and release memory. And in traditional C or C++ programming, you actually create a buffer and copy things into it, and when you're done, you're freeing it. And with garbage collection, you can create an object, and when the final person stops referencing it, it automatically cleans up, which fixes a lot of the problems that people traditionally had with C++ development around memory leaks and crashes and things like that. For Silverlight, it was actually particularly relevant. I mean, for .NET, it's a huge part of us being able to have an object-oriented system, and our garbage collector is what's called a generational collector. And so that means that, for example, if you create an object which references another object, or which references another object, which references back to the same object, we can handle things like cycles and things like that to figure out how we release. The last thing I just said is garbage collection is interesting both for enabling kind of an object-oriented system. It's kind of a prereq in many ways, I think, for having a true object-oriented system with a big framework. The other thing that's been nice for Silverlight is it's enabled us to have kind of the type safety that we need in order to run arbitrary code on the client without having to worry about it taking over the machine. And so from a security perspective, which is often not something that people think about with garbage collection, it's actually a kind of a core requirement, or it certainly helps as a core requirement in terms of having object-oriented code to do that.
So this question I saw it asked actually a few times in here. Senkwi asked it here again. Microphone support in Silverlight, will it ever be a reality?
Yes, yeah. The microphone and webcam, and someone asked earlier about printing, those are kind of the three of the big features that we definitely wanted to get in Silverlight 3. They took a little bit longer, and so we'll provide an update at some point that enables those. In general, what we do is we actually, one of the reasons why we're able to get so many features done is we do kind of use kind of parallel feature crews and teams, and so we do have people working on those features right now, and we'll ship them as soon as we can.
Another one here is great new stuff. Question: does Silverlight 3 support alpha video transparent background?
Yes. It's interesting, partly because we have the shader architecture. There was actually my gratuitous graphics demo. I was a little worried we were going to go over, so I didn't show that, but I actually do have that. And I think there's a sample in the SDK you can download. It turns out with the shader architecture, because we can apply arbitrary custom shaders on any UI element, you can actually build a shader that does any type of alpha channel transform you want. And so, yeah, you can absolutely go ahead and do, talking head with dynamic background or things like that.
Taylor Redden wants to know, what do you guys think about Ruby and the various web frameworks implemented using Ruby? Things like Rails, Merb, Sinatra.
In terms of what do I think about them?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think one of the things that's important when you're a developer is, to look at the different things out there and kind of try to internalize, what's good about them, what's not so good about them, what's unique, what's different, and most software out there today, incorporates lessons learned or ideas gathered from multiple frameworks, and I think there are good ideas in terms of with the frameworks that you mentioned. There's good ideas with other frameworks, that run on PHP or on Java, and one of the things that we tried to do with ASP.NET MVC was to try to incorporate ideas from Rails, from Django, which runs on Python, from struts or Spring that runs on Java, and bring those different model view controller ideas together, and listen to feedback about what people like and what people don't like. And the reality is, every framework people are going to like or dislike different things, but learn from it and hopefully add a whole bunch of unique stuff too that makes our goals even better.
Your site is really a cross-platform answering community. There's questions out there, been out there for PHP, C++, you name it. Yourself, do you work around with different languages besides .NET? And
well, at the moment, I have to focus on what we're doing on Stack Overflow, but it's very gratifying to me that we have a huge, like for example, iPhone development community, huge on Stack Overflow, and somebody recently commented that he felt that the Stack Overflow iPhone community was better than Apple's iPhone community, and I was like, that's great. That's what we're all about. It's that's the new interesting thing that programmers are working with, and that's exactly the kinds of things that programmers would be talking about.
And you get a real sphere of influence of different type of people that can ask questions that are just programming and algorithmic type questions as well too, that there may be somebody who is a PHP developer or C++ developer helping somebody who's with ASP.NET. It's
right. I think it ties into the previous question that was asked about, do you study all the stuff that's out there and try to incorporate like what's working, what's not working? I think that's so important as a programmer. That's the hallmark of a really good programmer, is they kind of know the landscape and they sort of see what's out there and they've studied it and tried to use that information to build something better themselves.
A little bit different crowd than the MIX attendees, but an important one for Microsoft. D. Yardy's asking, what are the prevailing reasons why a corporate dev should move towards the Silverlight platform versus standard ASP.NET Ajax type applications?
Well, I think there's a couple different aspects of that. One is, I think what we're trying to do with .NET and with Visual Studio is also make sure that there's always choice. And so I think sometimes people look to us to say, tell me what to do, and there are absolutely great benefits of building an Ajax-based line of business solution or internal app solution. And sometimes because it might be because you feel it feels more natural. You want to integrate it with a broader content-based site that's primarily text. There's lots of good reasons. Stack Overflow is a classic example of an HTML site that uses Ajax. That cares about, and so I think it's important that people don't think or don't necessarily look to us to say, tell me what to do. Really, you need to evaluate the different options and look at them. We need to do a good job, and we can do a better job in the future, hopefully, of providing more guidance. But definitely don't look at it as you must move to this path. Our goal though with Silverlight is to hopefully provide some opportunities where if you want to do rich data visualization. If you want to potentially have a slightly richer UI than you can easily build within Ajax. If potentially you want to integrate with other applications on the system, we provide a great programming model. You can do it, and you can write C# or VB on the client in order to do so. But at the same time, it's part of the complete tool set. It's not necessarily a mandate you should go off and necessarily do it now. You need to base that on your development team skills, your particular interests, and the site. And we'll hopefully provide some good guidance in the future that clarifies that more.
Well, somebody here, Kanga Mono. I don't know if I understand the question, but I'll try it. Are the shaders HLSL or GLSL on the Mac?
The shaders are actually HLSL on the Mac. So there's a language called HLSL, which is trying to decide how it's cross between C scripting and a DSL, I guess. But it basically it was pioneered by the DirectX team, and it allows you to kind of define shaders that you can apply transforms to kind of UI elements. And WPF uses the same architecture. We use the same architecture with Silverlight, and you can basically write this, compile it down. You can use it with DirectX apps. You can also use it with WPF and Silverlight. On the Mac, we basically can take the bytecode of the compiled thing, and internally, we can actually run it and ultimately, use the Apple graphics APIs to execute it.
Cool. Roger Guest wants to know, can we expect more support for unit testing in Silverlight?
Yeah, I think in general you're going to see, starting, I think with ASP.NET MVC in particular, that was a core focus when we started the project. But in general, what we're trying to do is make sure that both from a layering perspective, from a use of virtuals and interfaces perspective, and then also just from a workflow and tooling perspective, that we integrate unit testing and enable test-driven development more. There is a unit test framework for Silverlight that's out there today that you can use. That ships as part of the Silverlight Control Toolkit, and expect to see more testing support in the future.
That's great. Well, we're running almost out of time. I wanted to thank you guys for both coming on here, and really just thank the people out there on Twitter. One of the neat things about the jobs that we do and following Twitter and watching the people in the community is that the community really synthesizes the things that people are saying. They help pull together all of the different thoughts and questions, and we go out there and we're able to watch that, and hopefully we can make a better product and do something better for you all. So I wanted to thank everybody that's watching from home today. Sorry you couldn't make it in Vegas. We'll have a drink for you tonight, and have a great week. For the rest of the week, make sure you go to live.visitmix.com. Tomorrow's keynote with Dean Hamovich will be streamed live again. And all of the sessions that are happening here at the event, within about 24 hours, my team will be putting up the sessions up on live.visitmix.com. As they come in hot and heavy, and our encoding ninjas that are stuck in the back in the room that are doing that, we'll be bringing those up live. So you can participate in Mix. Hopefully have a fun little get together at your home tonight and experience Mix from home. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.